And welcome to the podcast, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and I have a very, very special treat for you today. The guest that I have on the show today is a certified hypnotherapist. She's also a therapist. I tried to write down everything that you do, and the list was too long. So let me see if I got this right. First of all, let me introduce Melody Litton. Melody, how are you today?
Today is a fabulous day. I am great. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
It is a fabulous day. Now, first of all, let me see if I miss anything here. You're an author. You're a hypnotherapist. You're a therapist. You're a coach. You're a trainer. You're a certified yoga instructor, right?
Indeed. The only one I would correct you on is I am not a mental health therapist. So hypnotherapy and coaching and spiritual coaching and wellness coaching, they're all in a different classification and legal classification. So I am not a therapist in the sense of a mental health provider, but absolutely on the spiritual end, the energetic end, the emotional end, and more of the coaching and hypnotherapy, which is a different classification.
Which is how we ran into each other, because I've been looking at doing some coaching and getting some personal counseling, and I was looking at the various types of people that are out there. And what I really wanted was somebody that could really get me in touch with my soul, get in touch with my inner self and who I really am. And so I thought, hypnotherapy would be a great way to go. And so I was looking around, and your website popped up and your business popped up, which is Healing for Life, right?
Correct.
And so as it turns out, you and I were already connected by a bunch of other people that are in both of our worlds that we know each other. Oh, by the way, in addition to doing all of that, you're a mother and a wife, and you are very, very involved in the church that you go to. When do you sleep?
It's interesting. Over the years, I have found that I'm able to balance it all as long as I'm staying connected to myself and connected to divine energy. And somehow it all balances in a beautiful way.
It's amazing to me because you are so busy. I can't, and thank you for taking the time to do this podcast, because it's really important that people understand what it is that you do and all of the tools that you have at your disposal that you so graciously have been willing to give people. And we're going to get to talk about more of that in a minute. But so let's start. How did you get involved with hypnotherapy, and what was your design and what was your passion around it?
My entry into the alternative healing world came through my work as a foster parent. And I had foster children in and out of my home, and two of these children ended up adopting, the first being a 13-year-old daughter with dissociative identity disorder and oppositional defiance disorder, as well as a history of trauma. And she was a handful. She was beautiful, and I could see so much light and amazingness in her. And then there was all of this pain and dysfunction and struggle as well. And at that point, I didn't know much about the alternative healing world, and I was doing everything that Western society told me to do. We were going to traditional counselors and psychiatrists, and they were putting her on medications that were zombieing her out, and nothing was truly helping. Some things covered some of the symptoms some of the time, but nothing was helping her to heal and balance. And one day I just threw my arms up to the heavens, and I was like, okay, God, you're giving me these kids. You've got to show me what to do. And that moment was the beginning of an entirely new path that became my life path and life purpose. Started out learning more about our spiritual nature, and that led me to learning more about energy medicine and energy healing. And several years into that, I ended up in Washington and haphazardly ended up at a hypnotherapy training, not having any idea what I was getting into. And 3 days into the training, knew. I'm like, oh, this is how I tie everything else together, all the tools I've been learning, all the stuff I've been learning, and bring it into my self in such a way that I can share it and guide people back to the truth of who they are. And my daughter no longer has the label of dissociative identity disorder, and she also is off of all medications. And it's just evidence to me that the heavens are open and give us the guidance we need when we're asking and willing to take steps forward.
That is awesome. See, I didn't know that. I'm glad I asked that, because that is really, that is phenomenal. That I didn't realize that you were a foster parent and that you did all of that. Now, let's talk a little bit about energy, because that's why I came to you, because I know that we are energetic beings in a physical body, and that we are all connected, and that energetically we all can touch each other in special ways. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. And I have found that the more aware we are of energy and how energy affects us, the healthier we stay and the happier our life becomes. So everyone, even if they don't have any prior concept of energy, or they never heard anybody talking about energy, has already experienced the effects of energy. If for just a moment you pause and think of a time when you walked into a room right after there was a big disagreement or a heavy argument, and you walked in, you're like, ooh, I think I'm just going to back out of here. You walked in and immediately felt the tension, and that's the actual energetic substance that they created with the argument. Or you felt it in your body. Let's say you were 12 years old and you did something you knew you weren't supposed to do, and Dad was coming into the room and he's about to ask you, and you know you either have to lie or you have to tell the truth, and then you get in trouble and you get that knot in your stomach. That's an evidence of energy. Our energy responds to our emotions, and that same energy creates physical sensations in the body based on those emotions and energetic responses. So we are physically connected to energy all the time, and that energy is affected by our emotions, and it's also affected by the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings, and what's going on around us in our environment and with other people. So if we are never aware that energy exists and we're not paying any attention, throughout the day, people could be dumping energy on us or sucking energy from us or leaving their anger, and suddenly we're just feeling really all moody and we don't know why, and we are being affected whether or not we're consciously aware of it. So the more consciously aware we become of it, the better we can keep ourselves in balance and healthy and clear, and keep track of what's my emotion, what's your emotion, and keep some really healthy energetic boundaries with people and environments.
So energy can affect your health, your physical body health then, can't it?
Oh, yes. Yes. One of my very first clients, can I share a little bit about that,
please.
Physical health? One of my very first clients, when I was first getting started, I was still working out of my home, and her husband had to drive her to my home and carry her into my office because her body was literally shutting down. At home, she was mostly using a wheelchair, sometimes using a walker, occasionally being able to use a walker. And within the first couple of hypnotherapy sessions, discovered that her body was literally paralyzed with fear. She had been through a couple of very traumatic experiences, and in those moments, her energetic body froze in fear. And it was affecting the way that her physical body could respond to actual life and movement. And as we worked through the experience and the trauma and the fear and brought her back to a healthier place, a healthier connection to herself, a healthier connection to divine energy, a healthier connection to the angels supporting her, the trauma connection was able to be released. And her fourth session, she drove herself to my house and walked in the door.
Oh, man. Now,
it was pretty incredible.
That has to be, I want your job. That's a really fulfilling work.
I do have the best job in the world. I can hardly call it a job. It's just the thing I do, this thing I am. I don't know what it is really, but I love it. I love it, and every day I thank God that I get to be a part of people's healing and people's growth.
And I want to touch on that because one of the things that you are very, very clear about is that whatever you choose to call God, God exists, and or the source, or people have got bunches of different names for how they call the divine. But for those, if there are any out there that are doubting that the divine actually exists, that's where the energy comes from, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I do honor and absolutely love and adore every name for divine energy, divine consciousness. And I have found that it matters very little what we call it. What matters most is how often we're choosing to connect to it and recognize it and allow for it in our life. So there's something that is greater than just this little human self that we are. And that something is what connects us and coordinates us and guides us and helps us and supports us. And we can think of that in whatever name, whatever form that feels most honoring and most truthful to us. But if we stop worrying about what someone else calls it and just be glad that they have a way to connect to it, we find a lot more peace. And it also gives us the freedom to realize, oh, I can connect with that energy and call it whatever I need to. Some people really just tap into an energy of love. They believe that there is an essence of love that connects us, so they just call it love. Other people know it as spirit or universe or God or angels or higher consciousness or collective consciousness. We can call it whatever we choose. What's important is that we start to recognize it and feel it and allow for it. And what I found in my hypnotherapy sessions is that everyone that I have worked with, even if they walk in the door and tell me, I believe in nothing, I am an atheist, I don't believe in anything I can't see, anything I can't feel or hear with my ears, I'm like, that's fine, but are you willing to stay open to the possibility that there's a chance that something else might exist? And I'm like, well, maybe. And in a session, there is always a moment where they connect with divine energy. I remember one woman, beautiful woman, she was in her late 60s, and she came in and had no religious upbringing, no spiritual upbringing, no belief in anything higher than herself. But when I invited her higher power to come forward in a session, she suddenly started sobbing. And I asked her to share with me what she was sensing or seeing or feeling. And she's like, there's this beautiful mountain. She's like, I see this beautiful mountain, and all I can feel from it is love. Like, it's the most overpowering love that I have ever felt. And I said, there it is. Connect with your mountain. That becomes what you can draw from, where you can draw your strength, where you can draw your guidance, where you can draw your power. And so from that moment, the mountain became her higher power. So when I say God, that encompasses any name, face, shape, or form that you most attune to and can draw from or trust in or ask for wisdom and support.
I can verify that because that happened to me in your office.
Yes, because you'd like to share about that.
Well, because you asked me to, you asked me that very same question, and I instantly, and I don't know where it came from. Well, I do now, but it came, anyway, I brought back a 50-mile hike that I was on with a bunch of Boy Scouts, and we were going up this hill, and it was on the east side of the Cascades in Washington State. And it was dry, and it was arid, and it was rocky, and it was hot, and it was brown. Everything was just brown. There wasn't much vegetation. And we were walking and walking and walking. And then we get to the top, and the top was probably only about 30 feet wide when we were going over the hill. And on the other side, it was beautiful green. It was snow-capped mountains. It was evergreen trees as far as you could see. And it was a metaphor for where I was and where I'm going. And that just appeared. You just made that. Well, you didn't make that happen, but you facilitated
I invited
that.
it.
And it was remarkable. And I've also gotten, I'm going to talk about it later after our interview, because I had another session with you recently, and then you typed up, thank you very much, by the way, I look at it often, and you typed up what I said that I didn't remember what I said, which is really interesting. Is that how hypnosis works, before I leave that topic? How does it work in the mind? How does it that I could come up with these things that I had no idea about?
Mm-hmm. So hypnosis is actually just a natural state of mind that everyone is going in and out of regularly. Even up to 80% of the day, we're in a state of hypnosis. We go in and out of the natural state of hypnosis anytime we're doing something out of habit, anytime we are in an emotion, anytime we're in a feeling. You know, if you consider driving down the highway and suddenly you're like, oh, where'd those last two exits go? That's a state of hypnosis. You were still aware, you were still safely driving, but your mind kind of checked out and went somewhere else, went a little deeper. Within the subconscious mind is stored all of our memories.